Even the attire of Santa Claus, the red clothes, that was designed by an artist in the last century for an advertisement of Coca-Cola. It was a mascot for Coca-Cola. Earlier, he had a black cloth worn reversely. That was the original dress before that. But Coca-Cola, for an advertisement, made this form of a Santa Claus with red cloth and a big clownish cap and a white beard and all these kind of things. Those who want to celebrate their love, those who want to celebrate their sexuality, those who want to celebrate their intimacy, those who want to celebrate even just friendship, that should be simply respected and accepted, and people should be happy about it. I think if the DYFA, if they are celebrating Valentine's Day, I would feel very happy about that. That's the right direction of doing things. Instead of branding all these kind of things, that's the imperial or capitalism or neoliberalism and all these kind of things. Forgetting all this terminology, come to human celebrations, and that is how it should be handled. A lot of lovers belonging to Hinduism and Islam, joining together and celebrating their love would be the best thing that is, to be taken forward. Let religions don't divide people. Let caste and other things don't divide people. Let economic positions don't divide people. When people are in love, no matter what situation they are coming from, no matter what religion, caste, or nationality, or language, or ethnicity, or any other thing, including age or anything, people should be in love. When they are in love, nothing should stop them. It's their feelings that are important.
Hello everyone and welcome to the weekend meeting with Sanal Edamaruku. I am Shubhi Sinha, heading the youth wing of Rationalist International, and we have been conducting these Zoom conferences successfully for quite a few years now. So we are really happy to welcome you again to this meeting. So now coming to the topic, Valentine's Day and Lupercalia. We all know Valentine's Day occurs every February 14th. Across the United States and in other places around the world, candy, flowers, and gifts are exchanged between loved ones, all in the name of Saint Valentine. In some places, it's a day for friendship, like in Finland, but the theme is the same: affection, love, and bond. But who is this mysterious saint and where did these traditions come from? How did it begin and how did it take such a shape of love? To answer all these questions that we have with us, we have Sanal Edamaruku, who would give us some more insight of this topic. Sir, we welcome you.
Thank you, Shubhi. Thank you, everybody. So this session today, we'll be discussing something which is going to happen tomorrow. It's a festival of love, a festival of affection, festival of cordiality, and in many countries, festival of just friendship. But it's celebrated almost everywhere in the world. Some years back, Valentine's Day was banned in some countries. For example, in Saudi Arabia, there was a law that nobody should practice Valentine's Day because it's against the faith of the country. But another fatwa a few years back changed it, and it says it's a part of the whole system and you can go ahead with it. But what is Valentine's Day? For many of us who came through the young years would understand that that's the day you would buy a flower and go to a lover and hand it over and would like to hear the word, "You are my Valentine," or tell somebody that you are my Valentine. Well, that's a common thing now all around the world. But you have to understand that this is not taken very friendly in many parts of the world or by many cultures. In India, for example, many Hindu radical groups find it against the Indian tradition. So if two people go hand in hand on a Valentine's Day, it would be simply stopped by some groups. For example, in Karnataka, there are one state in India, in Karnataka, there is an organization named Sri Ram Sena that would stop you, sometimes attack you, sometimes ask you to go back to your home or call your parents to ensure that the girls are taken back to their home. They don't want to accept that. They have their own choice. They have their own way of expressing their feelings, and the people who try to interfere into their life, they have no right to interfere into the life of other people. But still they would like to do that. This was happening in Saudi Arabia some time back. In the urban parts of Saudi Arabia, when people were secretly performing Valentine's Day, when it was banned there, and roses went very, very expensive because it was black market, there were people waiting and looking and peeping into every corner to see if somebody is secretly celebrating Valentine's Day, because it was considered something wrong. That's being changed now. But why this problem with affection and love in some countries? Why, for example, it's taken negatively by a certain section of people? One major thought is that it's a Christian festival. Many people believe, or the church officially tried to tell, that it's a Christian festival. It was officially made as a festival by a Roman emperor when Christianity was the official religion. If that's the case, many festivals we cannot celebrate, because Easter, for example, a festival of spring, was earlier celebrated, and that was officially taken as a festival of the resurrection of Jesus Christ by the Roman Catholic Church. And the festival of Easter has changed into, the festival of fertility has changed into a festival of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So should we just shun away from that, or should we practice it? So the story now, which is in circulation in the popular folk belief of the Catholic Church, or which is propagated by the Catholic Church, is as follows. It says that there was a bishop. The story is as follows. During the time of Claudius II, the Roman emperor, he made a law that the young soldiers should not marry. Why they should not marry? Because they would be good soldiers if they don't have a partner. That was the idea that Claudius had. So the story goes that, but still, some of the Christian bishops secretly performed marriages or union of people. So one person, supposedly a bishop, in the 3rd century, tried to join people together who were in love, and the emperor was so angry and he was beheaded. That's the story. So therefore, this was celebrated for a long time as his day, and now the church has adopted it as a big festival of the Saint Valentine. This guy was considered to be a Valentine. His name was Valentine. So that was the main story. But if you go into the history of Rome, you find something very, very interesting. The most interesting thing is the Christianity was officially became a religion of Roman Catholic Church in the 4th century only, during the time of Emperor Constantine. And Claudius II was 100 years before Christianity became a religion in the Empire of Rome. So there was no bishop at that time. It's a common sense question. Before the formal establishment of Roman Catholic Church, or the Catholic belief as the religion of the Roman Catholic Church, if the story goes correct, it came into being as the major faith 100 years before it actually came into being. So that would not fit together. So, but why then this story come into being? The story, what is told now is this person was martyred in the year 269. That's 3rd century. And there was no official Christianity at that. The Roman Empire, it became an official religion in the 4th century only. So the story does not fit together. But in the 5th century, in 496, Pope Gelasius I declared that a festival that was already existing there to be adopted as part of the Roman festival under the Catholic Church. This was a method that the Roman Catholic Church has been following under the Roman Empire. For example, the festival of sun or the winter solstice, when the days were going longer and longer and longer, and at one fine day, the darkness ends and the sun becomes, or the day becomes longer and longer. Somewhere around 25th of December in those times. Now it is 23rd of December or 22nd of December. Over the millennium, the time has changed. But this festival of the sun worshippers was adopted as the birth date of Jesus Christ. Why it was adopted? That's a common practice of most of the empires. They would take in most of the festivals that are practiced by the people and take into the faith and give a mythological explanation for that. So what was the mythological explanation given for the Christmas festival? They said there is no mentioning anywhere in Bible or any of the stories that Jesus was born in a cold winter night on 25th of December. But it says that the explanation is that Jesus is the son of justice. Therefore, this day is adopted as the birth date of Jesus Christ. Similarly, the festival of Easter. Easter was a festival that was celebrated all around Europe as the major festival of Istar. Istar was the goddess of fertility. Mid of April is the festival of Istar, and this fertility goddess is worshipped everywhere with 2-3 symbols of fertility. One, eggs. Imagine, there is no eggs in the Jesus story. Jesus was not in an egg. He was, as per the story, he was crucified and the body was taken into a tomb. And on the third day morning, when people came, he has gone. He has gone out of the tomb and he was resurrected. So, but on Easter, everywhere, the old festival is celebrated as it was earlier, with eggs and with bunnies. And why bunnies? The Easter festival was celebrated before Christian times. And whenever there is a festival or any ritual before Christian times, as per the Christian terminology, they will call it pagan festival. So if we use their terminology, it was a pagan festival. And bunnies were celebrated and eggs were celebrated because eggs were symbol of fertility. Most of the birds laid their eggs after the winter. And during summer, they would grow up because the food is available abundantly there. All these little grass and all little plants, which were all hibernating during winter, are now in April coming up. And also they found that many animals find their mating season during the spring. So mid of April was the festival of fertility. That was it. And that was adapted into Christianity because that was the festival of people. And that was called the Istar's festival, which was Easter, was adapted into Christianity. And this festival is now reinterpreted as the date of resurrection of Jesus Christ. Well, there is no mentioning in any biblical stories that this was the date that the mythological character that Jesus was, who was crucified. Similarly, there was another festival. There was another festival that was existing all around major areas that Roman Empire was in power. That was the festival of Lupercalia. Lupercalia, that's the major festival that was existing as a part of, what was Lupercalia? Lupercalia festival was, it was of not fertility, but of love, of affection, of sexuality, of intimacy. That was the festival. And this festival was going on, at least with the records available. This was existing at least 3,000 years back from now. This was a ritualistic festival. And in ancient Rome, this date was coming approximately in the mid of present February. So it is a wild celebration of sex, violence, and a part of fertility because winter started declining by mid of February. In 2 months, of course, there is spring. And the festival involved dating of people, then giving gifts, and then there are some ceremonies in connection with sexuality. There was violence also involved in that. So there was, a part of the festival was also connected with the wolf mating. So the very word lupus in Latin would mean wolf. So it was a festival of, some ancient Roman legends. It was connected with that. And Lupercalia was a kind of a fertility god. Before the fertility festival, 2 months before that, the winter is declining and people start meeting each other and they're coming together. And that was being celebrated all throughout the major part of the then Rome. So since this festival was celebrated all throughout, Christianity, officially the Roman Catholic Church, decided to take it as a festival. So this was an old tradition that not only in Roman tradition, you look at any culture, any predominant culture that takes over the traditional cultures would adapt such festivals into their fold. One can go to India to see as a good example. One good example is the Festival of Lights, the Festival of Diwali in India. If you see the dates, that's the time when the weather is shifting. You see that it's turning to darkness. The days are getting shorter. When the days are getting shorter and the darkness is coming, light is burnt everywhere and lamps are burnt everywhere. And that was celebrated all throughout India, especially the northern part of India, for a long time. It was Festival of Lights. Even now it's Festival of Lights, and the very word meaning is Festival of Lights. But if you go to the religious interpretation of the story, you would interestingly find two contradictory things. If you go to the Bengal side, the eastern side of India, it's a festival to celebrate the victory of Durga over Mahishasura. In central India, it's a festival of celebrating Ram's returning back to the empire or his kingdom after the defeat of Ravana in the Great War. So it's changing, from place to place. If you go to southern India, the whole festival is connected to, in Tamil Nadu, for example, to Shiva and Muruga. So there is no common source for the whole story, but the festival that existed as part of festival of climate change or weather changing, this was adapted into the main faith of the locality. You can find a lot of examples in blending cultures. Another good example is Pongal in Tamil Nadu in India. Pongal is a festival of harvest. So rice was cooked as part of the celebration. And now that's the new Tamil year's beginning there. But this, you have a lot of legends now connected with Pongal about the gods and demons and their great fights. You go to southern Kerala, one of the major festivals in Kerala, which is known as Onam. Many people, connect it with the victory of Vamana over the local king, Maveli or Mahabali. There is no story like that anywhere in the Hindu mythology, but there is a local story like that. The story is as follows. There was a king he was very, very prosperous, and he was an asura, one from the demonish, the demons. He was having a prosperous kingdom, but the gods were very angry. So the gods decided to, what an injustice, to end his regime. And Vishnu himself transformed into Vamana, a short man, and goes to this philanthropic person and asks him, can I have 3 feet land to sit and have my meditation or his tapas? The philanthropic king that he was, as per the legend, gives him 3 feet of land. With 1 feet, he measures the entire earth. With the 2nd feet, he measures the heavens and the hell. And then he asks, where is my 3rd feet? You have given me 3 feet of land. So the king decides to fulfill his promise, and he bow down his head and ask him to place it on his head. So the legend goes it like that. He pushed him down. Imagine what an injustice. A person who voluntarily and philanthropically gives somebody some land, and that was misutilized to destroy him, and he's pushed down to the underworld, and a new, Brahmanic rule emerges in the land of Mahabali. That's a legend of Onam. And now the legend is that every year there was a final offer given to him. Since he was such a good guy, the incarnation of Vishnu asked him, do you want any special, do you have any special wish before you are finally pushed down there? He said, I would like to visit my people once in a year to see whether they are still living prosperously under your new rule. The god agrees, and the king from the demon clan is pushed down. So he comes once in a year to see whether his people are still now living in prosperity. They were living in prosperity, but the gods were jealous. That's why he was pushed down. So now the popular folk faith is as follows, that everybody is eating well and demonstrating their courtyards with flowers and decorating their courtyards with flowers and dress up very well, so that they show their old king, who was pushed down by the gods, to show him that we are all living very happily, which they are not actually. These are extravaganza that they are performing on that day. The story goes like that, but the origins are very different. The origins were so simple. There was a time after monsoon and the wind, Hippolyte sea wind, comes from the Arabian side. And the sailing ships were coming at that time from the Arabian Peninsula. Kerala was the Malabar coast, was the center of the pepper trade at that time. And perhaps the Columbus has gone to India, which was in search of Malabar, and landed in America and called the local people Indians, and the Portuguese people and the Spanish people all were trying to reach this market, because Arabs have been having monopoly over the pepper coming from the Malabar coast. So now from 4th century, we know that ships were coming to the Malabar coast, to welcome the traders, to welcome the people who were coming to buy the wealth of the Malabar coast, that was pepper, which was weighed against gold at that time. There were festivities everywhere, there were flower shows everywhere. That was spring, and that was the time these people used to come. And this festival, when the new Brahminic regime came in Kerala, because in Kerala there was no Brahminism till 7th century. I mean, that was mainly a land of Jainism and Buddhism. And when it came, a story additionally came, and that was how this land was given to the Brahmins of Kerala. Because Vamana was a young Brahmin to whom the new territory has gone. It tried to give a new justification for the local legend that was existing earlier. It was allowed to celebrate the way it was, but it got a new color, the new interpretation. Similarly, the story of the great festival of Lupercalia was adapted into the Roman faith, or the Roman festival, or the Roman Catholic Church, as part of Saint Valentine. There is no story of a Valentine anywhere in Bible. So therefore, they found a story in connection with a person, namely Valentine, being killed. But when the story was created and it was spread, they didn't actually imagine that this would contradict to the actual history of the Roman Catholic Church. The story was that it was in the 3rd century that somebody was killed. But it was in, a much later time that this festival began. It was in the 5th century this festival began. But there are other stories also. If you look into the history of the declaration of different festivals, you can find at least 5 different versions of Saint Valentine, they call it, as the lover. There was a story about a lover bishop. There's a story about a bishop who loved people loving each other. All these are connected with the Christian clergymen encouraging people to be in love. And then what happens is, it contradicts with the whole idea of Christianity, because during this time, if you look into the whole idea of Christianity, you see that the human love, human affection, human sexuality was not considered very kindly or taken very kindly by the Christian faith all throughout. One of the major interpretations of, for example, the forbidden fruit, the first story in the Old Testament. I hope most of you, if you are not from the Christian tradition, I'll briefly tell the story. As per the Christian belief, God has created this earth, and then he decided that there will be light for people, and then he created sun and moon and all the stars so that we can have light during the day by sun, and night during the night by stars and moons. That's why this all were created, for humans to have light. Then he created the plants and animals and all these kind of things. And finally, on the 6th day, he would create a man. And then he finds that he's alone, and he takes out one rib of the first man. And from the rib, he creates a lady. And these were the first 2 people, Adam and Eve. The story goes further. Then the God is giving them a place to live, the Eden, the Garden of Eden, and says that everything here is for you. You can enjoy everything. The whole things, all the fruits and animals are all for you. It's a very human-centric story. All animals are for us. All plants are all for us. And the sun is for us to see light. And the moon and stars are there for us to see light in the night. So it's all for these 2 people. He makes everything, but you can enjoy everything. But there is a forbidden fruit. In the center of the whole garden, there is a tree. That's a tree which will have fruits that will give you the knowledge of what is right and wrong. And that fruit you should not eat. If you eat that fruit, that day you will die. God wants them. So everything is yours, but except a fruit from this tree. And that tree is there with all the fruits at the center of the garden. Then God's enemy, Satan, comes and convinces the lady that you don't die if you eat it, but you would get a lot of knowledge. So the lady plucks the fruit and eats it and give it to the man, and he also ate it. So they became sinners. Then that moment they realized that they were not having clothes. So they realized about their nudity, and then immediately God calls them, and they were so shy because they were nude. That's one of the knowledge. that they are nude. That was a knowledge for them. So God understands that they have eaten the forbidden fruit and punishes them. Very hard punishment. Throwing out from the Garden of Eden. And also tells that from this moment onwards, eternally, all women would have painful birth. They will deliver children with enormous pain. One of the biggest punishments that God gives. That you will have pain when you deliver a child. So that's why all women have pain during their delivery. So this is the story. So what is this forbidden fruit? Christian theologians started interpreting this story in different forms. And one of the major interpretations is that the first forbidden fruit was sexuality. And that was what God has actually said they should not have. And they've sinned by eating the forbidden fruit. So that is one interpretation. Theologians have written text explaining that. And so this story, from this story, there is a lot of Christian literature from the 3rd century or 4th century onwards that explains that sexuality is a sin. Even now, the church officially says that sexuality is not for any enjoyment. It's only for reproduction. So any kind of sexuality that is not meant for reproduction is a sin. So therefore, it's a sin to have any kind of sexuality without the intention of reproduction. So that is why the Catholic Church says that any kind of contraception is a sin. If you are aborting, yes, it's a sin for them. If you use a contraceptive of any sort, starting from condom to anything, that's all sin for them. If you remember Mother Teresa, when she got the Nobel Prize, when she was conferred the Nobel Prize, during that speech, she did not speak about the destitutes of Calcutta or her work, but she spoke mainly that time to focus on the importance of the fight against abortion and against contraception. That's a major message of the Catholic Church. So this Catholic Church that denounces sexuality, that denounces any kind of sexual enjoyment, how would they celebrate a festival in connection with celebration of human love? Isn't it a contradiction? They don't see this contradiction because they want to adapt every festival that existed in the Roman Empire into the fold of the Roman faith. That's how all festivals were adapted like that. Also, if you see the major churches in Rome, you can see that these were churches, these were Roman temples transformed into churches. All their artistic works, all their statuettes, all were transformed into the saints of Christianity. So this was a tradition of almost all the empires. Before Catholic Church, also the Roman empires were doing this. When one emperor goes and a different emperor comes, and if the gods change, they will transform the same gods with a new name. So they worship Zeus and Jupiter and all these kind of gods earlier. So the Zeus and Jupiter and Prometheus all becomes, in reality, the Greek gods as well as the Roman gods. You see that they are transformed into the Christian faith in different forms. If you remember the story of Prometheus and Zeus, look at the story and the similarity between the Christian mythology. Zeus steals fire. Prometheus steals fire because fire was only in the heavens. Humans did not have fire. So Prometheus decides that it should be given to the people, and he steals the fire and gives to the people, but the gods are angry, punishes him, almost like a sacrifice. He was tied up in the sea, and every day eagles will come and cut open his chest and eat his liver. And he's on the verge of dying, and in the night, the liver will grow again. In the morning again, new eagles will come and eat his liver. So that was an eternal punishment. The story goes that finally Hercules came and helped him come out of that. The son of the god being sacrificed for the sin that people got light. So the creation of God, Adam on the other side, being punished because he ate a fruit that's forbidden. So these all are, if you see patterns, you can see a lot of different patterns which are coming on the same line. The son of the Holy Ghost at one side, and Jesus as the Son of God comes and getting sacrificed for the sin, which was the first sin that Adam has done. And the people were sinned because of that. And so all sins were taken into him and he got sacrificed. So all these stories have similar line of thinking. This whole line of thinking is part of the ancient faith system. But interestingly, as we all know, that the major story with Valentine is that there was a guy, a Christian bishop, when there were no bishops at that time, still there was a bishop who helped the lovers to marry each other, because Claudius II has actually asked the Roman soldiers not to marry because single men would be more vigorous fighters. That's the story. That's why, the whole idea of Valentine comes from there. Claudius II did not allow the soldiers to marry, but people were still, when soldiers still wanted to be together, they were sometimes in love, and secretly this bishop helped them to marry. Therefore, he was caught, the bishop was caught, and he was tortured and beheaded. So he was celebrated. That's the story. When the story is narrated everywhere, wherever you see, for example, when the historicity of this whole story is challenged, and the tradition of the festival of sexuality in connection with Lupercalia was brought in, it's immediately denied, and they say that, look, no, it's not like that. It's because of Claudius II actually punished this guy. But the history of the Roman Empire is well documented. Everything is well known. There is not much secret about that, because writing history was part of the Roman tradition. During Claudius II, was there a ban on marriage for the soldiers? Is there any record for that? No, absolutely there is no record for that. So in fact, one can see that there was a story which is on the contrary, or which there is something which is totally contrary happening. This Claudius II had a great fight with the Goths. Goths are the present Germanic people, or the present day Germany. If you see the history of Rome, the fight between the Roman Empire and the Germanic people have been a major part of the whole struggle. And the Western Roman Empire was even collapsed because of the great fight between the Roman Empire and the Germanics. But Claudius II had a great victory over the Goths. That was one of the major things during this regime. And Claudius II declared, as per documentary evidence, he has declared that all soldiers, in celebration of his victory against the Goths, can take 2 or 3 women as wives. There was a declaration for that. That's documented. When Claudius II has asked his soldiers to take 2 or 3 women as their wives, how can one say that he has asked them not to marry and to be celibates, and therefore the bishops oppose this? So it doesn't fit together. And look at the whole pattern of Roman Catholic Church. If you see the nuns of the Roman Catholic Church, that came, of course, much later, the nuns are not allowed to marry. They have to take an oath of celibacy. Why? Because the idea that they wanted to put upon Claudius is actually put upon them. They think that if they are married, they would not give total service to the church. There were other stories also how the nunnery has begun. But look at the priests. They are also not allowed to marry. But of course, in the initial part, they have been marrying, and the bishops were marrying. They were, even 15th, 16th century, you can see stories of the life of all these bishops becoming completely murky. If you remember, in 1500s, when Luther challenged the authority of the Roman Catholic Church, when celibacy was already a part of the Roman Catholic faithhood, and bishops and priests were not allowed to marry, Martin Luther was officially writing in his book in 1500s that there was a discussion in the hierarchy of Rome that there should be a decree or not, that there should be a number of limitation to the number of the young boys these bishops can keep with them, or the cardinals can keep with them for sexual pleasure. Who said that? Martin Luther, founder of the Evangelical Lutheran Church, who started the Reformation movement, officially wrote this. There was a discussion now at that time going on that there was a serious issue going on, whether there should be a control on the number of young people whom these people can keep for their sexual pleasure. So at one side, they were propagating celibacy or advocating celibacy. On the other side, a major leader of their own church from the German side challenges the Roman Catholic Church with this fact that they've been discussing about the number of young persons whom they can keep with them for sexual pleasure. And of course, the Catholic Church broke on many things, including that. Of course, there were many other issues which shook the Catholic Church at that time. And Catholic Church broke into two, and the Evangelical Lutheran Church emerged, and that became a big challenge to the church. But this church, which at one time, at one side, they have been celebrating their personal sexual life secretly and officially stopping people for their priests not to marry, for their bishops not to marry, and for their nuns not to marry, and telling their members of the church that sexuality is a sin and you cannot enjoy sexuality because God has forbidden it except for human reproduction. And this church, if it says that we have a great festival coming to celebrate human sexuality and human love, there's a contradiction in the whole thing. The whole idea is that the church everywhere, wherever they have gone, they have adapted the local faiths into themselves. You have seen that, for example, a picture of Jesus Christ in some traditions, that his heart is kept out. There is no tradition or any faith in connection with that, but you have a lot of pictures with Jesus Christ with the heart seen outside. In fact, in Latin America, there was a festival of the local people where they celebrated the heart. They sacrificed a person in part of a ritual and took his heart out to celebrate the heart. When these people were taken into the faith fold by the Spanish invasion, the festival of heart was adapted into the Roman faith, and they produced a Jesus Christ with a heart outside. You can see that picture. I mean, that's now very popular picture everywhere. I mean, with the Jesus Christ with the heart out. Many people do not know how it began. So when they came to a local place, the local temples or other faiths, they adapted into their faithhold. One example, if you ever gone to southern India, I mean, if you remember, there was a huge tsunami some years back, and a church was completely submerged into water in Velankanni in Tamil Nadu in India. This Velankanni is well documented that Velankanni was a local deity of the fishermen community Velankanni is a goddess with the eye of a fish, the fishermen's local deity, whom they believe would be protecting them when they go to the sea. When Christian faith came, this was transformed into, during the Portuguese time, this was transformed into Mother Mary. This was a goddess. So therefore it was Mother Mary now. So this kind of a transformation they have done everywhere. They could see their faith everywhere. Another story, Vasco da Gama, when he came to Calicut in India, it's his own, autobiography or biography about him by his Portuguese colleagues, that when he landed in Kapar in Kozhikode and was going to the local emperor Samorin, on way, he stood down seeing a statuette of Mother Mary there, and he asked for the blessing of Mother Mary there. Later we know that it was not Mary, but that was a statue of Durga, because if one sees a female statue, for them it's part of their own faith, and wherever it was possible, they transform such images or transform such faith symbols into their own faith fold. This was what was actually happening. When priests were not allowed to marry, when bishops were not allowed to marry, when sexuality was taken as a sin, on the other side, they simply adapt into their fold a festival of love and sexuality. So this is a contradiction, which is simply a stealing of a pre-Christian festival into the mainstream festival of Christianity. But it's gone out of the Christian hands, because this festival is no more, or in any place, it's taken as a Christian festival. So it has gone into the people as a people's festival again. I mean, most of you, I'm sure, would not have connected this with the Christian festival officially started in the 5th century. They started it like that. They propagated it like that because it was going, wild everywhere. It existed before the establishment of Christianity, before the so-called period of Jesus Christ. And this was everywhere in Roman Empire. And later, the same festival was adapted by the church, but now it has gone out of the hands of the church. I don't think any church is now celebrating Valentine's Day, but the youngsters are celebrating Valentine's Day beyond faith and across faith. You go to Saudi Arabia. Now, once it was banned there, now it's legalized and people can celebrate Valentine's Day there. You go to China, there is no Christianity there. Still people celebrate Valentine's Day there because people want to celebrate. They want to celebrate something to connection with their feelings. They would like to celebrate the spring festival. They would like to celebrate their love. They would like to celebrate the new days of light coming in winter solstice or summer solstice, when the day in the fullest brightness, they want to celebrate. From times immemorial, people found reasons to celebrate life, to celebrate their joining together, celebrate communities with the singing and dancing and merrymaking. People they were hunting. They were looking for their food. They were gathering food. Later, they were cultivating. Then they would be, growing through agriculture. But still, they were all working hard. And whenever they had an opportunity, they wanted to join together. They looked for reasons to celebrate. And so every single thing that's a possible celebration, every community, everywhere in the world wanted to celebrate. There was no Christianity in Africa, but still there are festivals of love in Africa. People dance to music there. Everywhere, music and dance and celebration is part of human life. That people did from the old times when we didn't have homes, but we lived in caves. Still people danced. Still people sang. Still people, were drumming. And they found every single thing which they wanted to celebrate as an opportunity to celebrate. When they got an animal which they can make as food for several days, they celebrated. There are cave pictures that we can see that people are dancing in front of a hunted animal because that was food. They simply wanted to celebrate it. This spirit of celebration is there with humans. This celebration is connection with a climate, when the climate changes. This celebration is there when the new weather comes, when spring comes, they celebrate. And they have symbolic things. During the fertility time, they celebrate fertility. And when the dark winter is getting over, they started celebrating their intimacy and sexuality and their affection. That's how humans developed. The community feeling was building up on the basis of their joining together and celebrating together. That was one way of people joining together. They danced together, they sing together, and they sang together, and they wanted to make their life better by forgetting things behind and celebrating their life. Every single celebration of human culture, every single celebration that we cherished are common for everybody. That's not part of any faith or any tradition. That's a tradition. That if you take any heritage, that's a heritage of human history, human culture, human civilization. We came through that, and we all have a right to continue all these celebrations the way we want it, without the shade of any religion, without the control of any religion, without the interpretation given by any religion, because all these festivals are our festivals. No matter whether it was celebrated by Christians by Christmas, we know that it's winter solstice and we will celebrate its winter solstice. And summer solstice, yes, we celebrate. If it's a spring festival, yes, we would celebrate. And if it's a festival of love and friendship and intimacy, yes, we would celebrate, because every celebration is a celebration of humankind. And we don't want to leave it to any tradition or faith or religious organization. It's our celebration, and we capture it back for the humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, well, on this note, let's move on to the question answer round. Click on the hand raise tool icon for asking, and try to stick with one question, one person, and be as precise as you can.
Good evening to everybody. Nice talk, Mr. Sanal. I really don't have any questions. Now there is no church, Catholic Church celebrating Valentine's Day, but all youths in all religion, they celebrate Valentine's Day, and you give us a detailed history how it is begun, and it seems as a pagan celebrations, and then in Christianity, in Catholicism, pagan, Persian, and Judaism all interchanged, and Catholicism kind of developed in a the King Constantine.
Constantine,
Constantine started the Catholicism, and then it is developed as it is now. But it is very nice that we celebrate this old festival as it is, and it is. I think it's on February 15th is the Valentine's Day, I guess. Here also throughout United States, young people, especially everybody celebrate. Young people especially celebrate. They exchange flowers and sending card each other and everything. It's a nice celebration. I think we all need to be celebrated this one, just like as it is. You told us now. I think actually the Catholicism really developed in the fourth century. And before this, there was no bishops or no cardinals or bishops or pope was there. That's also nice. Several times you told us about this, or it's very nice to keep to know more about this and celebrate something like that. I really don't have a question. I think this festival will continue again and again, just like today. Thank you very much for this time.
Yeah, thank you for that observation. That's precisely what I would also suggest. For example, in countries where, for example, Christianity has faded away, like the Scandinavian countries. Here also people celebrate, Valentine's Day. And before Christianity also people celebrated. Now the Catholic Church has, they are not officially taking claim on the Valentine's Day, rather they keep a low profile on that. But if you look at the Catholic Encyclopedia, they would officially claim that they started it. There's a bishop who was there, and there are three traditions mentioned in different parts. And one major tradition is this: the story of Claudius too is mentioned in many official Christian literature. But Claudius too actually did not stop any kind of marriages. In fact, he encouraged soldiers to marry more than once, 2 or 3 wives. That's what he proposed. Anyway, a festival of love, festival of human sexuality, festival of intimacy, festival of friendship, whatever it is, whatever way you want to see it, it's a beautiful one. It's to be celebrated if one wants to celebrate it, and nobody should stop it on the basis of faith or culture or their own separate ideas as it is happening. Thank you very much. But maybe one more thing I would like to add here. Who are opposing celebration of Valentine's Day or a festival of love? I can say from my Indian experience, there are two groups who are officially opposing celebrating Valentine's Day. One is the radical Hindu, the extreme radical forces in the Hindu groups. For example, Sri Ram Sena or Bajrang Dal and all these kind of extreme groups, they are damn against Valentine's Day. They're against any kind of human proximity of male and female together, sitting together or holding hands or walking together or kissing somewhere. They would find it such a very bad thing. So that's against the Indian culture, they would say. Interestingly, I a report some years back, very close to Khajuraho temples, in Madhya Pradesh, that some Bajrang Dal volunteers were chasing out young lovers in a park and beating them with small sticks and calling their parents to take them back. And if they have gone some kilometers away, they would see the temple of Khajuraho, the temples of Khajuraho, that's the correct thing, where human intimacy is celebrated in hundreds and hundreds of beautiful statues. That was part of one tradition. And they are also part of this great tradition. Still, they would want to fight against that. That's such a great irony. But on the other side, if you see the left intellectuals, the so-called anti-liberals in many circles, they are also against the Valentine's Day celebration. It's an irony. The extreme right at one side and the left on the other side both oppose celebration of love and and human proximity. The argument of the left in many articles I've seen that this is a festival of the capital. This is a festival of the multinational corporations. This is a product selling festival. Yes, most of the festivals, any festival if you take, if you see that, there are, if you see about Easter as a great festival, one can see from shops already, chocolate eggs are being sold. So what's wrong with that? People need something to celebrate. What's wrong if people are eating chocolate eggs during Easter? What is wrong if people are playing with bunnies and children are getting small bunnies and they are looking for the colorful Easter eggs? That's nothing to do with any faith or anything. But if they want to celebrate something which is not binding them to any traditional faith, but just celebrating life, it should be seen with a kind heart. The radicals on the right and the radicals on the left, both are antagonists against these kind of festivals. That's something very complicated to understand at least to my perspective. Thank you very much. Anyway, I'm for celebration of life.
One more thing, I like to add, I think there is Catholics as well as Christians in China and as well as in Russia too. So I don't know if they are celebrating Valentine's Day in either Russia or China, I'm not sure. But as far as I know, now there is Christians in China, but Russia is even very progressive in nature that I see. I don't know if I am right.
I think I beg to differ about the facts, because in China, Valentine's Day is celebrated so widely. There are articles about such a Valentine's Day being celebrated so widely in China. It's encouraged by a lot of, structures. And in Beijing, you can see red hearts and red roses being sold already. It's celebrated. But in Russia, there is not much Catholicism in Russia. Catholic Church is a very tiny organization in Russia. But there is Russian Orthodox Church, the biggest church in Russia. And the Russian Orthodox Church is not against that. People are, whether they practice a religion or not, they are celebrating. Who cares church nowadays in Europe or in the Western world? Who cares? Nobody, especially the younger people, they don't care about any church or anything. They don't know that once the church claimed that it's our festival, nobody cares. Nobody even knows that. It's nothing to do with any faith now. It's a festival of human sexuality, human affection, human love, human intimacy. That's the festival. If church want to celebrate that, well, they are also welcome to celebrate it in the fullest form of it. But first, they should allow to enjoy sexuality for their own priests and their own nuns. And before that, if they want to celebrate human sexuality and human love, there is something which is quite contradictory to that. Anyway, let's not stop anybody, in the name of all these faiths to celebrate human feelings.
Okay, so I think we have another person with us, Kunjatur Chandrahasa.
Hello, good evening, Sanal. Okay, you have given so many narrations and maybe difficult to comprehend at one stretch. The thing hitherto, I was believing that Valentine is a lady or saint where some sacrifices were made, and now today we understood some of the realities, and you explained it very nicely. My second point is, I would like to know in the Christianities, how many, one is Roman Catholics, another is Anglican, another Orthodox, how many how that different lines have come after Jesus Christ. This is the one. And the third question is, it is connected with our rationalism, that what's up that one rationalist, whether it is coming out or whether you are shortly expecting it to come out or not. These are my three.
Can you say about what? About the rationalist app?
One app, rationalist.
Yes, I tell you.
Material,
I speak about that. First of all, your question about the origins, how the denominations of Christianity, that not directly connected with this topic, in a way it's connected also. Because, for example, when the Roman Catholic Church officially claims that it was one of their bishops who were killed by the then Roman Emperor Claudius II, and it is in his memory that this great festival of love and sexuality began, that's one argument. Because there were no bishops at the time of Claudius II. There was no Roman Catholic Church also at that time. That came 1 century after that. So, but this tradition, because they wanted to grab everything that existed beforehand, nothing more than that. But the Roman Catholic Church was not the only church that came into being in the 4th century. The Eastern churches were also coming almost at the same time. They had a different tradition. Because in the foundation of Roman Catholic Church was a big meeting which they call the Synod. The Synod was a meeting where all these leaders of the different faithfuls in the same line. It's a common legend or common belief system which many people followed with different shades. The leaders of all these groups were called in, and they were meeting at a place namely Nicaea, and it was almost an year, and they selected many books of legend into the main faith form, and many books of legend they discussed and rejected. So then a common idea is coined together, which is known as the New Testament of the Bible. It's all the same faith, same legend, but presented by different people. There you can find contradictions in each other also, but there is a general line almost in the same explanation which is going on. And then the Roman Catholic Church was officially established by taking it as the official religion of the Roman Empire. This is in connection with a power struggle between Constantine and his, ousted brother. So on the other side, there was an Eastern Church going on. So what you know as the Eastern Orthodox churches, that is a totally different tradition. So what you see in Russia is the Russian Orthodox Church. That's the Eastern tradition. And what you see, for example, in Greece is the Greek Orthodox Church. That's not a Roman Catholic tradition. So that's another stream of the faith, almost from the same area, very close to, Roman Catholic Church was established in Rome. It was in Europe. Eastern churches were actually coming in the land of Arabia. And several churches were emerging there. So now you see the two major streams, the Eastern churches as well as the Roman Catholic Church. So Eastern churches again split it into minor details. Whether Mother of Jesus is to be worshipped or not, there can be a split. Or whether this festival should be followed or not, there can be a split. So they broke into several different groups. One major group was focused in the banks of Tigris in the present-day Iraq. Another major section was in Egypt. So there were several traditions. In present-day Syria, for example, there is another major center of this Eastern faith. But the Roman faith altogether continued as one whole unit with the mighty Roman Empire control for a long time. The Roman Empire used this as a tool to unite people for their political purposes. This was mainly challenged by a lot of people from the 7th century, 8th century. You can see people are challenging it. But that was questioned by the church by suppressing them. Anybody who raised a question was purified with pain and executed. Later, they had a method to kill anybody who opposed them or anybody who followed a traditional faith, the pagan faith, what they called. They were all executed. They were burnt alive. And anybody who put forth a different idea, which was not followed by the church, they would be punishing them or executing them. You can see 13th, 14th century, you can see huge executions were happening. Millions and millions of people were killed or burnt alive or tortured, and they developed torturing machines to punish these people. So the church kept in control till 1500s. In 1500s, there was a challenge against the Roman Catholic faith from within. From the German side, there was a major leader of the church named Martin Luther, and another person. They were all Christians, but they challenged one of the major faiths of the Roman Catholic Church. At that time, the church was trying to raise money from different ways. One way is, for example, you have sins. You have to pay money to the church to be buried in the cemetery of the church. Your sins have to be purified by the priest. So everything you have to pay money. All your money, a part of it you have to give for all these rituals. But to raise huge amounts of money, the then Pope made a new pattern. You have to donate a huge amount of money to the church. Then all your sins will be relieved. You will be taken out of your sins. So you give huge donation. There's a price. Then the Pope will give a certificate to you that all your sins are done now, and a stamp, and a stamp of the Catholic Church by the Pope. And when the person is buried, the certificate of the Pope can be put along with the dead body, so that when you go to the other world, he will straight away go to the heaven, because all the sins are now cleared. But for that, you have to really give a lot of money. So many people found that this is such a stupid belief, such a stupid idea. And this was one of the points of the challenge, along with other things like about the sexual anarchy that was prevalent in the center of the Roman Catholic Church was challenged by many people, including Luther. Luther said, as I mentioned earlier, because many popes were secretly keeping a lot of mistresses at one side. They had, one major, which is also present a big problem, that there were a lot of abuses on young boys and girls. And there was a serious discussion going on in the Cardinal's center that how many young people you can keep for your sexual pleasure. Can that be limited or not? That was officially discussed in the Roman Catholic headquarters. And Luther said, come on, what is this? This is not faith. This is a kind of total misuse of the religious authority that these people have. He challenged it. That was a huge movement, and he could influence kings and many countries. He made his own army and challenged the Roman Catholic Church, and came the new movement that is known as the Evangelical Lutheran Church. Now, the present day whole Europe was controlled by the Roman Catholic Church. But now you can see that in Germany, in Sweden, in Denmark, in present day Finland cannot be, called transforming at that time, because Finland was not properly developed as a country at that time. It was part of Sweden at that time. And many parts of Europe totally changed as per the evangelical Lutheran faith. They stick to Bible as the base than the tradition of Roman Catholic Church. Then the Protestant movement emerged. Then the major Roman Catholic Church split in center and became two big churches. Then another major reformer, namely Calvin, he made his own church. In Netherlands, the major church, for example, is the Calvinist church. Then eventually, and these all were traditions coming from the Roman Catholic Church, but split away in the 15th century. But all these faiths, the Christmas and Easter and everything, they continued, but the Roman authority was challenged. Another set of faith, which are known as the Episcopal churches, that were, if somebody is blessed by some bishop of a new church is blessed by a bishop by this tradition, they can establish a new church. For example, there are churches like the Martyr Church in India are all Episcopal churches. So some other churches who challenged against Roman Catholic Church did not go to the Lutheran way, but they took a nationalistic tendency, like the Anglican Church in Britain. That's also considered a Protestant movement. They also challenged the authority of the Rome. In Britain, for example, Roman Catholicism is disliked by majority of the people. And you must be remembering a story of one of those prince. One prince had to abdicate his royal position because he wanted to marry a person from Catholic faith. That kind of a distance they have developed with the Catholic Church. It's Anglican Church. Again, that's a Protestant. Then the evangelical movements came. Then you see in America, a lot of new churches emerge, which are known as the Baptist churches. They believe that they have to reborn again, and to become, a true Christian after you become an adult, you have to re-baptize again. That is known as the Baptist churches. So now there are more than 3,000 different churches, mutually contradicting in their faith and who have no mutual connection and who believe in totally different things. The major divisions, if you call, the Roman Catholic, still the major church, then the Protestant movement scattered into at least 25 different big churches, then the Episcopal churches, then the Baptist churches. In 1920s, there was another movement, which is known as the Pentecostal movement. That's 100 years back. They stopped believing in medicines and they wanted to get directly connected with the God. And it's a kind of extreme religious occultism was promoted. And they call themselves Protestant because they also focus on Bible. But generally, they are considered Neo-Protestants. So altogether, there are something like 3,000 or 3,500 different churches with the totally different faiths. And the United States has at least 1,000 different churches with the faith which is defined differently than other faiths. So most of them follow, for example, many of them would not follow Christmas. There are some faiths who deny that. Because they consider that this is a Roman tradition, we don't accept it. Some would celebrate the Eastern churches. Till recently, they celebrated somewhere in January the Christmas because they didn't accept this date. So there are a lot of differences, but finally everything comes together because it's taken as a collective common. That's how it is. For example, just like Santa Claus. Santa Claus has nothing to do with Christianity. That was a traditional Finnish faith, but which became a festival of Christianity when Christianity came here. And even the attire of Santa Claus, the red clothes, that was designed by an artist in the last century for an advertisement of Coca-Cola. It was a mascot for Coca-Cola. Earlier, he had a black cloth worn reversely. That was the original dress before that. But Coca-Cola, for an advertisement, made this form of a Santa Claus with red cloth and a big clownish cap and a white beard and all these kind of things. That was a Coca-Cola creation for their advertisement in 1950s. So that's adopted by everybody. That's how the faith goes. Thank you.
All these different faiths, you said about 3,000, they all can coexist in the sense, can they believe in one church? Can they marry the person from other church? All these things are traditionally allowed, or of course, or is it through their constitution, it is forbidden, just like in society?
It's forbidden by the churches, but not forbidden by the nation's laws. For example, you can marry anybody if both two people like each other, no matter what caste or religion or what faith you have, you can marry each other or you can live together. There is no problem. But the churches don't like it. If you want to solemnize a marriage in a church, both the persons should be in that church. So some churches allow, for example, the Roman Catholics now allow in some countries that you can marry a person from another denomination of Christianity with one condition, that the child should be baptized in the Roman Catholic Church. So they don't have mixed marriages between them. And it's like Indian caste system. They're divided.
Even some other Jacobites, the Pentecostals, you already said. These are all the wings you are telling. Different.
The Jacobites are coming from the Orthodox tradition, the Eastern tradition. Eastern tradition, when it came to India, apparently the religion came long back, the 4th century, and that was Eastern tradition. But when Vasco da Gama came, he converted everybody to Roman Catholicism. And then many of them came back. So of the Orthodox tradition in India, there are two major beliefs. One is the Jacobites, or they call themselves again, there are still divisions, Syrian, they all claim the Syrian origin. That from the Syrian converts they came. So they are considered something like an upper caste in Christianity. So they consider their headquarters is in Antioch in Syria. And their archbishop is sitting there in Syria, their patriarch is sitting there. This church was split into two, and one group believes that their headquarters is in Kottayam in Kerala. So they are called the Orthodox Church, and the Jacobites are, another tradition, again from the Eastern tradition, from the Orthodox tradition, but with a different headquarters. They split it into two.
But basically, Orthodox and Roman Catholic did not start from the same origin. They are separately.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we can move on to the next person now. We have Ratish with us. I would just ask you to unmute yourself.
Good evening, sir. As you said, this thing, the left parties are against. But in the recent developments in Kerala, the DYFI and all, they are celebrating something for tomorrow. Of course, they celebrated the Sri Krishna Jayanti and Atukal Punkala and all. So, is it a part of just for vote they're doing it or no? What is this thing? So, another question is my thing. So, why this February 14th is selected? So, why is the peculiar that date is selected for the Valentine's Day? Is any history behind it? So one more question, sir. That UN. So UN have different dates for even the Environmental Day and Yoga Day, all those. Whether this Valentine's Day or we have any day for love on the UN dates?
No, this festival of Lupercalia that was existing long back, that was on February 14th, 3 days. From 14th, 15th, and 16th. Or in some places it was 13th, 14th, and 15th. The February and all these calculations came before the Roman Catholic Church. That was by the Roman, the Gregorian calendar came before that. And accordingly, this festival was coming on the mid of February for 3 days. So this festival was, when this was adapted, they took 14th of February as Valentine's Day. So
UN,
what was the next?
The UN date for any law or Valentine's, they have so many days for even for yoga. They made a day for that.
This is nothing to do with United Nations. This is from the Roman Empire. This came. This was in the 5th century. This festival that was existing long back, the Lupercalia festival, the wild festival. It was also connected with the sacrifices at that time. It was. The red color is coming from the sacrifice. For the fulfillment of sexuality and love, they sacrificed two people in love. And they voluntarily, they allowed themselves to be sacrificed at the time because they believe that if they were sacrificed, they will be in eternal love in the other world. They had a lot of superstitions. That was the festival. The red color is connected with this sacrifice of the lovers, who voluntarily coming to be sacrificed for the eternity of their love. So it was coming from that, nothing to do with United Nations. This was coming from a traditional old Roman, pre-Christian folk faith.
So any day for love in the UN, any day for such?
That I do not know. United Nations came after the Second World War, after 1945. So, it can adopt many days. There is a day for logic in, by the way, which we try to celebrate as a day of rationalism, because logic is the foundation of rational thinking. So they have a lot of days. You can get any day accepted, provided it does not give financial burden to the United Nations. Yoga Day is also taken as per the proposal of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But it was adopted unanimously by the whole House because nobody wanted to dispute a wish of Indian Prime Minister. And that was only with one condition, that United Nations would not incur any funding on that. It was on the same ground that a day of logic also was taken by United Nations. But I don't think there is a day for love for United Nations. One has to check it. I haven't checked it. But the popular faith and popular festival that is Valentine's Day is something interesting, isn't it? I mean, when people celebrate friendship or love or sexuality or human intimacy, that's something beautiful. And that's something, those who want to celebrate their love, those who want to celebrate their sexuality, those who want to celebrate their intimacy, those who want to celebrate even just friendship, that should be simply respected and accepted, and people should be happy about it. And I think if the DYFA, if they are celebrating Valentine's Day, I would feel very happy about that. That's the right direction of doing things, instead of branding all these kind of things as the imperial or capitalism or neoliberalism and all these kind of things. Forgetting all this terminology, come to human celebrations, and that is how it should be handled.
So one more question, sir. Now the hijab issue is going on in Karnataka. So tomorrow is a Valentine's Day. Is there any what would happen in Karnataka from the saffron morons? Anything you can predict or anything? Any issues tomorrow?
If you ask me, how would I like to see this situation in Karnataka, is a lot of lovers belonging to Hinduism and Islam, joining together and celebrating their love would be the best thing that is, to be, taken forward. Because let religions don't divide people, let caste and other things don't divide people, let economic positions don't divide people. When people are in love, no matter what situation they are coming from, no matter what religion, caste, or nationality or language or ethnicity or any other thing, including age or anything, people should be in love. When they are in love, nothing should stop them. It's their feelings that are important. Maybe the best way to celebrate the Karnataka controversy is the lovers who belonging to Islam and Islam and Hinduism should come together and celebrate it together. That's one of the best ways to handle it. I would say that this controversy is uncalled for. Education institutions should be religiously neutral. And if somebody comes with a hijab, some other people will come with a saffron headgear. And all religious institutions should be religiously neutral, and people can have their faith or hijab or turban or whatever or thing, in their private life, but not in a school. Schools have a uniform. If there is a uniform, they have to follow it. It's not for one. If it is aimed at one religion, there is a problem in that. And if it's totally religious neutral, that should be respected, is my feeling. But building a conflict between communities is in any way not good, because Hindus and Muslims are part of India. And in that way, all people with all different religious origins are part of one India. Also, why India? People of all different nationalities are part of one world. And people should not find, their elements of hatred on the basis of religion or faith or nationality or language or other things. And people should find their mutual, whatever possibilities are there to cooperate each other, to live in coexistence and to live in peace and live in harmony. That's more important. That's where our attention should be there, not on conflicts. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
All right. I'll just go through once if we have any other question.
I come under Jacobite and Orthodox fraction of the Kerala Church. But I don't believe in both of these religions or these fractions. But I have a question to you, is which is the right one? There is Jacobite and Orthodox. Which will be more good? See, I have some favorism with the Orthodox. But still then, I want to know what is your opinion, please.
It's a question of if somebody brings a too hot alcohol and telling that which is more dangerous to your health. You cannot really answer on that point. So I would consider that any of these faith, if you want to follow, nobody has a problem. That's your personal choice. But on the other side, if you can live without the influence of these religions and caring for people for all faiths and all other people without considering their faith, no matter whether one is a Christian or Jacobite or Orthodox or Muslim or Hindu, if you can love other people, take care of other people and understand the pain of other people, understand the laughter of other people, that's more important. Let's not speak about what is good in any religion. And you cannot say what is good, because all these religions, in my view, are doing one wrong thing, that is dividing people. Despite, the other thing is they are promoting people to remain in certain traditions, and they keep people in their folds. And what we want is people coming out and mixing up with other people without all these barriers and becoming one whole beautiful universe where we all are equal and we all are not, constrained and divided with our faiths. That's the most important thing. I think neither the Jacobite Church nor the Orthodox Church has any privilege than any other faith. And that's as equal as Muslim faith, as equal as any Hindu faith. That's another faith. I would advise a situation which is free from the influence of this faith, where we can see people beyond this faith and we can understand our own knowledge about this universe beyond the influence of these faiths, but with a scientific attitude. That will be more important. But let's not divide people. Let's not dislike anybody because of their faith. Because even if some people believe in some faith, we should be able to accept them, recognize them, and respect people beyond their faith. I don't have any preference to any faith, though I'm an atheist, as you know. But if an Orthodox person comes and a Jacobite person comes and a Muslim comes and a Hindu comes, and whether I would choose somebody because of their faith? No, I would choose a person whom I feel comfortable with. I would not consider their religion to make him a friend. I have friends from all different faiths. I don't consider even, whether they are non-believers or not. People should be able to find friends and recognize people beyond the divisions of caste, religion, or nationality, or language, or economic status, or their age differences, or their political ideology. All these factors are dividing people. Let's see people beyond this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanal sir. I don't believe in these fractions for the 40 years back. So I am living without going to church or without believing all these stupid things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I think then we can conclude the meeting for now. So thank you, Sanal sir. This was a lovely session, and the history in itself is so interesting. And like Mr. Chandrahasa said, it is too much to grasp. On this note, thank you everybody for joining. We will come back next week with more socially relevant topics. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shubi. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Baba. Thank you, everybody who is participating in this meeting also. Thank you very much.